Welcome to the HDG Stories podcast, where we'll share our threads of memories, knowledge, experience, and history, knitting all generations into a beautiful tapestry. So please like and share, and be sure to subscribe. Now let's get started.
Hi, this is Ellie, and I'm really excited to bring you my first live interview that I did with Noble Mentzer back in May of this year, 2016. He was born November 3rd, 1927 in Elkton. Most of us in town know him as Noble. He's funny and inspiring. These excerpts are from a 2-hour interview that I did with Noble. He first shares some early memories of his childhood, and I must warn you ahead of time, be prepared for a chuckle. Later, he talks about the waterfront, hunting and fishing and swimming, and he also mentions where the old town dumps were. He brings up the interview, talking about homemade ice cream and the delivery of fresh milk. I hope you enjoy these excerpts from the interview with Noble Mentzer, and that you'll subscribe to hdgstories.com. Thanks. Let us know what you think. When did you actually come to Havre, Grace?
I was born in Elkton, Maryland on November 3rd, 1927. My dad worked for the Standard Oil Esso Company, and they established a plant in Havre, Grace. He was sent to Havre, Grace to be set it up and be the foreman of the plant. That was in November, and on I think it was February that we moved to Havre, Grace. Mother and Dad. He selected a house for us, and we moved to Havre, Grace. And you know, Ellie, I remember that day very clearly because I helped my dad carry the cedar chest up to the second floor of the house. And if you believe that, I'll tell you another story because I was 3 months old.
I was going to say, you weren't very old. How could that happen?
So I've told that story 1,000 times to people in the community.
Do they all give you that look like I did?
Well, all of a sudden you see them start taking their fingers down.
Because I was just going to say, and what year was that?
That's my background. I grew up with a family of 7. I was 6 of 7. And it was the Depression years, and life was not easy with one salary taking care of 9 people, mother and dad included.
Wow.
Yeah. So Dad had the ability to work with his hands as much and more than he did with his mind, and he developed a garden, and we dug the garden and planted it, and we learned then how to sustain ourselves with Depression years, and food was shortage and so on.
What's your earliest memory as a child?
I guess I was about 5 years old. We were living down on Water Street across from the Esso plant. One of the doctors that we knew in town, Dr. Steiner, came to visit us, and he had a black bag in his hand. He walked in and went into the house, and we stood out on the porch waiting for him to visit with my mother, who was apparently ill. Now, I'm 5 years old. I didn't know what was going on. And after a short while, I heard the baby crying. He delivered a baby for me. And you know, it was for several years that I thought that when a doctor came to your house with a black bag, there was going to be a baby.
Well, that's a lot better than what could have been.
Yeah, what could have been, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, he was. My youngest brother was born at home right then, and so that's my earliest memory.
Now, that house, does it exist now?
Yes.
It does?
Yeah, 606 Water Street it is. Mm-hmm. This was now 1932,
okay.
And I remember the horse-drawn milk trucks and the horse-drawn garbage collectors coming and picking up the refuse. And they took it to, we had 2 dumps in Havre, Grace at that time. We called it the Uptown Dump, which was right there where the Gilbert plant was still just recently. And the Downtown Dump was right down at the foot of Congress Avenue.
Oh, okay.
They would take the horse bogies down there, shovel it off into a pile, and that's where it was there. And we swam right close to it in those days. We swam, all my life I swam in the river. Then when pools were introduced, I was getting to be a young man. I went to pools and I'd get an earache when I never got it from the water in our river.
So the waterfront, what was the waterfront like growing up?
Well, the log pond, you ever heard of the log pond?
Yeah.
That was just a tragic looking thing because they had a ship there, the half sunk, and the long propeller that you see at the museum,
Maritime
Museum. They had the long propeller there sticking out of the water, and the water, the front of the river was not really organized to an extent other than plants and fishermen and a few wharfs. Mm-hmm.
So you just swam wherever you could get close to the water.
Yeah, we did.
Now, were they doing logging then, or was that pretty much done? Because
logging was pretty much done at that time. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now there were a lot of fishermen that had piers along the shoreline, and they would go out with their nets and bring in all types of fish. And hunting was a big thing in those days for them to go out and get ducks and geese.
So was that the time period when the bayou was?
The bayou was built, yes,
yeah.
and it became
like a lodge.
Became like a place for the rich and famous to come to, is what it was.
Do you remember any of that?
Yes, I do. They would come here, and the old-time hunters would serve as guides for them to take them out. They would take rooms in the bayou, which was each of one of the rooms had a bathroom and running water in it, and that was unknown at that time.
Wow! No wonder it was the rich and famous.
And they would take them out hunting, and there used to be an expression with the older folks in town that. I shouldn't name names. I'll just say that he was one of the guides that used to take them out. He felt that the hunters got their bag for their limit for the day. He would look up to the west, as most people on the river did, look to the west because that's where our storms come in from, the west. And he would say, "By God, Mr. Gimble, we're going to get a storm here before long. We better get on in." And then he would bring him in, and he would go out and get his skill that he wanted for himself.
Okay, so
there were pickers in town that would pick their ducks for them. They would have them to take them back with them, or they eat them right there at the Bayou Hotel. I remember late 30s, middle 30s, I guess, in the late 30s, the railroad station, we had a nice railroad station in Havre, Grace, two of them, as a matter of fact. One was a freight train, which was across from Green Street there, and the other one was up on Warren Street. I can remember seeing the large extended platform was designed for holding the ducks. They would have name tags on them. The hunters would put them up there, a pair of canvasbacks to Mr. Brown in Wilmington, Delaware, or Boston, Massachusetts, and they would send them up by the trains would pick them up, and each one of them had a tag on them to go to those stations.
So it was more than just taking fishermen out and hunters out. It really was a.
It was a business,
a pretty big industry.
That was an industry that people often thought that because they were overshooting, that they were destroying the amount of ducks and geese that would come into the area. But it was never the shooting that did it. It was the encroaching of the communities up in the northern part of the states where the ducks and geese multiply, produce, nest, and so on. The encroachment of man into their territory was cutting down on their ability to have a good place to be able to raise their young, and there was a decrease of it. And then development, our country, how it developed, that had something to do with it. And then shortly after that, they put a limit on the number of ducks and geese that they could kill. I can remember going into one of the sheds where the main hunters on the streets right down by Water Street would have their ducks, their kill for the day. And they would have them set up hanging down with the head down so that they could drain the blood out of any of them that they put up there. And you'd go walk into a room and just see hundreds of ducks and geese lined up along the wall. that some people had ordered that were going to ship to.
How did they ship them without them spoiling?
That was the way of living in those days. We had no refrigeration hardly at all. We had ice trucks that brought ice to the houses. You'd get a 20-pound block of ice that would use it in a refrigerator, and that was the type of refrigeration that we had. Yeah.
So could they do that on a train?
No, they just, as long as it wasn't too long for the bird that has been shot.
So they couldn't go far.
But they would send them all the way up into Boston and down.
Really?
Yeah, up and down.
Makes you wonder how we survive eating today, doesn't it?
It is, yeah. Well, things spoil so quickly nowadays for some reason. In those days, it was cooler. Now, hunting season, it was usually the cold season.
Oh, that's
remember that too.
That's a good point too.
And they would hold up for a while longer. I remember making ice cream. That was a big thing for our family. Dad had a hand-cranked ice cream maker, 6-quart.
And that was entertainment.
That was entertainment. I have mother to make it. 2 was for us to churn it, and you do that for an hour, and your arm is pretty numb.
Exactly.
And I would remember I was so young that when we used to do it, that they used to put me on a stand on it alongside so that I didn't touch the crank, but I stand on it to hold it down while they churned it.
Piece de resistance was to enjoy
dasher.
it.
You get the dasher.
Oh, yes.
The one that cranked the most got the dasher. And that was best.
Yep.
But I used to say, I've never seen anyone as conservative as my mother when it come to food. She could get more off of that dasher before she'd give it to us. There wasn't much to dip out of it after she had cleaned it off and put it back in.
That was pretty special, huh?
Then that would be packed so that's hardened up and good. Packed in ice and salt, rock salt. I made ice cream up until just a few years ago, and then I gave my churn to Mark, my son. But yeah, it was electric then. But the ice cream never tastes as good as with the electric one. It didn't.
Yeah.
I remember when they delivered milk to us, and this was a big thrill for us. They'd set it on the porch to come early in the morning before we even went downstairs. If it was a cold morning and it would freeze, the milk in the bottles, they had paper caps on them, and they'd send up the cream and a stick. Ooh, you talk about something good eating. That was good eating. We would go out and get the bottles of milk. We always had more than 1 quart delivered to us, and that was daily. Mm-hmm. That was daily that they delivered the milk because you didn't have any storage. We drank it. But cold weather, getting that cream stick, as we call it, that was the beginning of life. And I also remember in the spring of the years when it was raw milk we were drinking now. Mm-hmm. It wasn't pasteurized. In the spring of the year, when the cows would get out and get the fresh garlic, they loved fresh garlic. You'd come in, you'd come downstairs, and we walked from downstairs to the dining room to the kitchen. And if you saw half an onion sitting on a table in a saucer, you know what it was for. The cows had gotten into the garlic, and the milk tastes like garlic. And Mother used to tell us, take the onion and just stick it up and pop it into your teeth and set it back down. And each one of us did that, and we drank the milk and never tasted garlic. Isn't that interesting?
What'd she have you do?
Take the onion, it was half onion, put it in her mouth, and just hold it and pop it up into her teeth. Get the juice of that from that short distance time. And
then you took it out.
Took it out and set it back on for the next one to have. Hygiene wasn't the same as it is nowadays. And we would do that, and we didn't taste the garlic in the milk.
And the onion didn't ruin it either?
No,
They like balanced each other out?
Yeah, neutralized the garlic.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was the big thing. When we'd come down, we knew that...
You knew what it was.
You knew that the cows had gotten into the garlic.
That's...
they were much smarter than we are.
Yeah.
We have the computer nowadays to tell us what to do.
Yeah.
They showed us how to do it.
We hope you've enjoyed today's HDG Stories podcast. We encourage you to subscribe. We hope you will share with your friends. Till the next story, we invite you to visit us at hdgstories.com.